I'm Amber Fuhriman, and this is the Break Your Bullshit Box podcast. If you want comfort, this is not the place for you. If you're ready to understand what makes smart, capable, successful people, including you, keep repeating the same patterns, this show breaks down human behavior, drawn from real conversations and years of studying what makes people create change so that you can make better decisions, have better conversations, and get better results. So let's dig in and break the bullshit that's been running the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Break Your Bullshit Box podcast. On today's episode, I have Chris Mitchell with me. Chris is so many things. He is a independent sales broker for Solar Now, but he comes from the fitness industry. He's a father, he's a husband, he's an amazing human being, and I'm so excited to have him here. The reason I invited him on was because Chris and I have had some incredible conversations over the last couple of years that I've known him regarding identity, sales, what it takes to show up in a leadership environment, the shifting of careers, the willingness to show up in different environments. We just got into a really deep theology conversation at coffee, so we never really know where it's going to go. The consistent underlying theme of every single conversation that I have with Chris is human, authentic, and engaged. And so I was so excited to be able to bring him on, have a conversation about his journey, and share a little bit of who he is with you. Chris, thank you so much for being on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So you're in Solar now, but you weren't always. No. So young Chris, if we go back to, I don't know, 14, 15, when we thought we knew it all, what did you think your life was going to look like?
I thought I was going to be a professional baseball player. I was on track for it, going down that road. That didn't go very far.
Oh, no. What happened?
The long and the short of it, the Atlanta Braves and the San Diego Padres, neither one of them could bulk me up as big as they wanted me to, and that ended that. But other
Were
than
you
that,
drafted?
Not officially, no.
Okay.
Not officially.
Did you play college ball?
No. I played, the school that I went to didn't have a team. So I played Legion ball up in southern New Hampshire, and just happened to have the right people around to be able to get seen, I guess.
Okay.
And so I got kind of lucky, but is what it is.
Yeah, man, what was that? This is not how I expected this to start. The things I learn about you. Let's talk for just a minute about that journey of having this goal, being so close to touching this goal, and then having it taken away from you. What was that process like for you in deciding to move forward?
Well, I don't know that I fully expected the opportunity to show up to begin with.
Okay.
Right. I was little. I came out of 7th grade at 4'6".
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh at you.
And no, that's okay. Everybody else did back then too, so we're all good. But no, I came out little. I was never a big guy, but I was competitive, and I threw really, really hard.
Were you a pitcher?
I was.
Okay.
And I covered a lot of ground in center field, and so I played well. I made a lot of all-star teams and things of that nature, but I would have dreamed that would have happened.
Yeah.
But my dream versus expectation were not necessarily on the same page. And it actually just came out of disappearing, going off to college, coming back and playing catch, bumping into my old coach, playing catch on his front yard, and one thing led to another, and I ended up getting scouted, and then ended up having a couple of teams try to bulk me up, behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And then it just didn't happen. So I look back and I say I got more done than most. I got further than most. I got recognized more than most. And it opened up an entire world of conversations in the fitness industry with people that were on that level.
Yeah.
Because I understood where they were coming from. They understood that I understood.
Yeah.
So it opened up some relationship stuff that those doors have continued to stay open.
What do you think you learned from either playing baseball or the experience of trying to become something that baseball wanted that has affected you either positively or negatively in your career?
Well, I'd say it goes back to the very basic thing, and you and I have talked about this part of it many, many times. You just didn't know where it rooted in, and that came back to mental strength. I had the privilege of having a coach who understood pitchers. He was a catcher himself in the minor league system. He was a pitching coach in the minor league system, and he understood how to train the brain, the mind, to be able to get through failure on the mound. When you're standing there, everybody's expecting you to perform. The ball's in your hand, literally. And, with those pieces came the ability to stop, pause, mentally reset, compartmentalize the failure away, and then move on. And the more I've looked back at it, I think some of those lessons that I learned on a pitcher's mound, 16, 17, 18 years old, have carried into a lot of different areas of life since then.
The way you just described it, I don't understand. And yes, I'm going to sound very judgmental here, and I kind of mean it. I don't understand how anybody can not like baseball. Because when I look at it and somebody says baseball's boring, I'm like, have you ever thought about the fact that you have a person standing 60 feet away from somebody holding a stick that has a arsenal of weapons in a way they can throw a ball to make it move in ways that's not humanly possible at a speed that we shouldn't be able to throw, that you've got a catcher that's got to understand and predict where that ball might go. You've got outfield that's going to affect based upon the stance and the way this person hits where the ball might go. How can that be boring? Yeah, it's such an intellectual game.
It is. It really is. And understanding when, and then understanding as you dig into it even deeper, that you're throwing pitchers in the first, second, third inning to set things up that you're going to be throwing in the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh inning.
Yeah.
And intentionally holding back and setting people up.
Yeah.
Classic example of that was Greg Maddux. I was listening to an interview. Greg Maddux, he literally let a gentleman hit a home run. I think it was in 95, 96, somewhere mid-90s. He let a guy from Arizona hit a home run on purpose in a blowout game, knowing full well that he could set him up for that exact same pitch 2 months later in the playoffs and get him out. And he told his catcher about it. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Playing fourth dimensional chess rather than checkers, to use a common phrase these days. But just understanding how to set things up and how to think through it and how to break things down and understand where things are going, what you're trying to accomplish, set a plan, set a mode of attack, so to speak, and then follow through with it.
Yeah.
And execute it. Whether you think you should change it now or not.
Yeah.
Executing. So there's a lot of lessons that can be taken out of baseball that, if you really dig into it, are very applicable to a lot of different areas of life, business, etc.
I think that sports in general, that applies to, right?
I would agree.
We have a lot of people who, my brother's one of them, and I guess I feel the same way, even though I didn't play sports at a high level. I think that the discipline that's learned, I also grew up on a farm. No, I didn't. I grew up in a farming community. I grew up around farms.
Yeah.
But I grew up with horses, and I think that the lessons that you learn in environments like that, where there's structure, discipline, I think we are living in a world right now with participation trophies that were going to detrimentally affect us and society down the road. People have got to learn how to lose and how to do it gracefully.
Yep.
And, there's a video that went viral a while back of a kid, maybe 12, I would guess, that the dad's recording him, and he takes this trophy and he throws it in the trash. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I didn't earn that." And I'm like, that kid is going places. Yeah. But I think there's so much that we look back at in that consistency that creates success as an adult.
Flip that coin over. There's a video that's going around right now that I just got sent to me yesterday A kid who lost a playoff game in a basketball, and instead of taking ownership of his own mistakes, turnovers, missed shots, etc., he started throwing fists at the referee.
Yeah.
Literally attacked the referee, because he failed. Now, don't get me wrong, referees are human beings too, right? They make mistakes, they have judgment calls and along the way, and they see things at one angle and they're blocked off. They can't see fully what's going on. I get that.
Yeah.
Right? It happens. There are things that happen that a referee can't see. And sometimes they do have a consequential effect on a game. Right?
Yeah.
I get it. There's no getting around it.
And it's almost the human element that we love so much.
Exactly. But still, flip that over to what you were just saying. And in one case, you had a participation the kid threw away because he didn't earn it. In the other side, you had a guy throwing fists at a referee rather than taking any ownership of his own mistakes.
Yep.
And it can go both ways.
It can. And, I think you and I have both been on the other end of conversations where we know the other person's wrong. Mm-hmm. We know the other person doesn't remember something the same way that we remember it, and we have the receipts to show that we're right. Mm-hmm. And the willingness to be able to approach that with grace and tact and negotiation skills instead of throwing a tantrum and screaming in somebody's face is what's missing in a lot of conversations. So you don't become a professional baseball player. Mm-hmm. Instead, you end up in the fitness world working with athletes. How long were you in that world?
Well, I started off teaching and coaching,
and
then moved into other areas from a ministry perspective. That then led me to the actual facility, if I could put it that way, inside of a very well-known, very large fitness environment. Mm-hmm. But so in and out, I've never left it. I've been in athletics or around athletes and using that platform in one form or another since I started playing organized baseball at 12. And I had a game last night, or not last night, but last week. So I've got a game coming up on Thursday night. So I'm still playing.
So you're still in it.
I'm still in it. I have no intentions of leaving it.
I love that. My brother played baseball, and there were a lot of conversations that we had where he's like, it's the only reason. Like, he's incredibly successful now, owns 2 insurance agencies, and just opened a golf simulator. And without baseball, he probably wouldn't have graduated college because he didn't give a shit about school. Yeah. He went to school to keep his scholarship. That was it. Yep. So it's definitely got its roots for sure. How did you find solar?
It kind of found me, let's be honest.
All the good things do.
Yeah. Unfortunately, in 2020, we're all aware of what was going on globally at that point. And I was an executive with a large firm, multi-billion-dollar company, and my role was traveling around the country, fixing broken locations, teaching customer service, and that's
in
what I did.
fitness or solar?
In the fitness world. And like everybody else, when that happened, I got furloughed. Nobody had travel jobs anymore, right? The entire industry shut down. And so I was still technically employed, but furloughed. And by the time we got several months into that, realized that my role wasn't coming back. My wife and I had just adopted a little girl. She was, at the time, 2 weeks old, 3 weeks old, something like that. And a friend of mine introduced me to the solar world and said you should take a look at it, and one thing led to another, and next thing you know, I was in the solar world and able to work from home instead of being on the road, completely opposite of what I would have been doing.
Yeah.
And it kind of found me. I didn't even go looking for it.
Was this your first introduction to business ownership and entrepreneur lifestyle?
I probably would have to say yes, it was. I mean, I'd done a lot of other little things along the way, but never anything that was an actual career.
Yeah.
It was like side hustle here, side hustle there. And I kept it as a side hustle mentally, because this is what I was doing. Right? Yeah. I was in this world, and nothing was going to affect that. As a matter of fact, in my position as an executive, I wasn't supposed to have side hustle things, because if I did, part of my ethical responsibilities was to not use my position to further myself elsewhere.
Right.
And so I had to be very, very careful with it.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I kind of backed away and didn't even announce I was in solar for 7 days after I was officially terminated. And I mutually agreed to part ways because we knew, both of us knew my job wasn't coming back. But once that happened at the end of September, I didn't even announce I was in solar for another 7 or 8 days, just to be respectful of what was going on.
Yeah.
I had too much respect for them and what they had done. But it was my first career change, if I want to put it that way, where I was not looking for a paycheck somebody else.
Yeah. We talk a lot about who we are, the identities that we take on. What were some of the shifts that you needed to make coming from a corporate executive world to becoming a business owner?
Well, I think the biggest ones were just, you get so tied into position and title, I think sometimes, without even realizing we're doing it. Right? It's, okay, I had this role, and then I got a promotion, and then I got another promotion, and then I got another promotion. And next thing you know, it's like, hey, I have earned all of this.
Yeah.
And it's position, it's title, and it becomes, your identity becomes wrapped up in those things very quickly, right? I'm the general manager of this, or I am the sales manager of that, or I am overseeing this area. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, my next step is a bigger area, right?
Yeah.
And then it's gone. And then it's, okay, where is my identity now? Because it was so wrapped up in those positions and titles that, and again, not on purpose, it just kind of happens.
And I think
you spend 60, 70 hours a week developing that.
Yep.
It just kind of happens.
Well, and I don't think society helps at all either, asking you what you want to be when you grow up from the time you're 2 years old.
No. And then at the same point, like, for example, when I became, and I won't name the company because it's just not appropriate here, but when I became a general manager of one of their locations, and all of a sudden I was responsible for just shy of $2 million a month. Okay, 22, 23, $24 million annual budget, 400 employees, 165,000 square feet of space. All of a sudden it's like, hey, I've got all of these people that are underneath, right? And then here locally, where we are in Las Vegas, it was that position now all of a sudden came with other people that were in similar positions in other industries. And they're like, well, hey, you're the leader of this and we're the leader of that. We can help each other. And that position is recognized as a elite spot within the city. And so next thing you know, you're getting offered this and offered that and offered this. And I tried to put those things out and give them to my employees rather than take advantage of them myself. Tried to use them for different other things rather than self-benefit. But the second that's gone, so are the opportunities. And all of a sudden it's like, well, who are you? Well, here it's, oh, you have that title.
Yeah.
Oh, you have that. Oh, you have this. Oh, you have access to that. And we can help each other. And that's just the way that this town works. And I think a lot of towns work that way, but this town more than many operates almost exclusively on that level. And so, that kind of really pulls you into that and focuses you on those titles way more than it should. And I didn't even realize it was really happening. Let's just be real and be honest. I didn't realize my identity was getting so tied into that until it was gone.
Yeah.
And then I didn't have any clue who I was anymore.
It's so interesting because there's two things that are coming to mind for me. One of them is hilarious now that I look back on it, and it's when I became an associate attorney for the first time. I was sure that I was going to work in the public defender's office. I had done an internship at the public defender's office. I had gone through the first couple of rounds of interviews, but they couldn't officially make a decision until I passed the bar. So I passed the bar, and then I got the final interview call, and it was between me and one other person, and I didn't get the job. So I started looking. This was 2013. So the market, the 2008 crash was just hitting Vegas at that point in time. Things were going on hiring freezes. And I remember just saying, get whatever job you can in the legal field. And I found a job as a law clerk for an immigration firm. And it was so hard for me to take that job because I had a law degree. I had passed the bar. I wasn't a law clerk, but I took it. And I remember getting through the interview, getting the job, going to my car and crying because it wasn't the title that I wanted, right? So I worked there for a little bit, and I'm drafting a brief, and I go to put it on my boss's desk for a review. And before I do, I look at it and I'm like, wait a minute. And so instead I go back, I redrafted, and at the bottom of the signature line, instead of Amber Fuhriman Law Clerk, I put Amber Fuhriman Associate Attorney, and I circled it and put a question mark next to it and put it on his desk. And he gave it back to me with approval to print, and that's how I got promoted. My pay didn't change, nothing changed, but I had the title I wanted, and that was success to me.
Yeah.
And I look back and it's comical now, because what the hell did that mean? I gained nothing.
No.
I gained nothing except for the title I thought I should have, and it didn't change who I was. So we put so much emphasis on what we're called and what the titles are. In fact, when I was first getting back into the dating world and I went onto the online dating platforms, I remember seeing a profile where it says, what are you doing with your life? And his answer was recovering from collecting letters after my name. And I was like, my God, like what a powerful response, because I feel like that's what we do. We get, whether it's your ESQ, whether it's your MBA, whether it's, your corporate general manager title.
Yeah.
We collect these titles, these letters, and then they get stripped, or we realize they didn't actually add anything to us. Yeah. And then the second thing this brings up was actually when I left being an attorney full time. And I knew that it wasn't what I wanted to be. But when I would introduce myself to people, I still had to find a way to talk about being an attorney. Yeah. And my coach called me out on it one day. And she's like, what is the purpose of this? And I really had to dig deep to understand that I felt like the attorney part of me deserved respect and the coach part of me didn't. Yeah. And so I felt like I had to lead with the attorney so they knew that I had done something that was worth respecting. Yeah. I hadn't changed. So it's just interesting how all of those titles create identities that we're so unaware of.
Yeah, and then when they're gone, it takes time.
Yeah.
And I'll openly admit the fact that I broke. When they were gone, I broke. I didn't want to admit it then. But my wife, when I've had conversations about it since then, she's like, Chris, you broke. Mm-hmm. It broke you when they were done. Because all of a sudden, it was this level of confidence that I can get to the next one, I get to the next one, I get to the next one, I get to the next one. And then when they're gone, it's like, who am I?
Yeah.
And I think that really was a big part. I mean, you introduced me at the beginning as a whole mess of different things. And when I look back at it now, I look at those, and what are those titles actually are important?
Yeah.
Husband, father, those are important, right? Who cares if I'm an entrepreneur, if I make a paycheck somewhere else? Who cares if I am running my own business, or if I am, working for somebody and building theirs? Who cares about all? The only ones that really matter are husband and father, right? Those two matter. The other ones don't. And it took me a while to get to the point where the other titles didn't matter anymore. And at that point, then I started to become a little bit more successful in what I was doing.
Yeah. It's crazy how that works. Huh?
It is kind of crazy how that works, yeah. When I realized that those are the only two that matter, And so now my daughter gets frustrated when I'm not home. Mm-hmm. Because she's used to having dad home. She doesn't know what it's like to have dad who disappears for 40, 50, 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
She knows what it's like. She's in kindergarten. She comes upstairs with a paper that she's just done to show it to dad. And I stop and pause everything that I'm doing because that matters more than this.
Yeah.
I could give her what she needs, send her back downstairs to keep going, and then pick up what I'm doing. Those 30 seconds is not going to make or break anything that I'm doing professionally.
If current Chris could talk to young Chris and give him any piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, buy Bitcoin.
Facts.
No, I actually had the opportunity to buy Bitcoin when it was under 10 cents, and I turned it down. I turned it down.
I'm getting like Back to the Future vibes of like figuring out what teams are going to win.
Yeah, if I could do that. I've jokingly said that, put that exact same thing on a number of different posts. But reality, I think if I would sum it up, I'd put it in this simple thing. I would say focus on what matters. Just focus on what matters. If it doesn't really matter, don't worry about it.
How do we decide?
I think that there are things that we have to prioritize. Right? I mentioned just a minute ago, husband, father. Those things matter, right? Those matter. My first responsibility is to my wife. My second responsibility is to my daughter. Everything else falls behind that. So if it's not going to build my relationship with my wife, it's not going to help me support my family, it's not going to help me encourage and build the character and the strengths and the qualities that my daughter needs to be able to survive and to be able to thrive, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. Like I said a minute ago, who cares where I get my paycheck from? If I can pay my bills, who cares where my paycheck comes from? If my bills are paid, who cares how much is left over in the bank? You know, we get so focused on all of the other things because we're trying to keep up with other people. But the truth of the matter is, the only thing that really matters is those two people. That's it. That's it. Those are my responsibilities. And
you.
Yeah, that's very much true. Because you can't take care of them if I don't take care of myself.
Correct.
Right? So that, again, why do I do that? I'll tell you a little bit of a story. So I started going to the gym very, very, very frequently in my early 30s.
Okay.
I was already going, don't get me wrong, but I made a conscious choice. I told my wife this back in our 30s. At that point, we knew that we were not going to be able to have children on our own. Just medically, biologically, it was just not going to happen. We knew that. And, you know, we had opened up and just said, okay, if the Lord drops an adoption in our lap or something else comes up along the way, then we'll be ready. And as I pushed into my 30s, I started to realize already that if that happened at 35, then I'm going to be in my 50s when my child gets out of high school. If it started to push into my 40s, now I'm pushing towards my 60s. And then it got to 40, 44, 45. And all of a sudden it's like, if I have a child, if the Lord allows us to have one, that child is I'm going to be 63 by the time they graduate from high school. And that's exactly when the Lord opened up the door and dropped an adoption in our lap, when I was 45. So I made a conscious decision in my 30s to take care of myself for one reason. I did not want to be the 45, 50, 55, 60-year-old dad who couldn't keep up with my child in high school.
Yeah.
Who couldn't throw a ball with my son if I needed to. Who couldn't, participate in a dance with my daughter if I needed to. I didn't want to be that guy. So I prepared in advance to be ready for the future.
We talk about identities, and I think that this is something that so many people go through. And as somebody who has never wanted children, this is something I can empathize with, but I can't truly understand is the desire to have a child and not being able to do so. Was there any, well, I don't want to ask if there was any, because I'm sure there was. What was the identities that you had to negotiate with when you realized you weren't going to be able to have biological children?
That's a great question, and something that we are extremely open about. Extremely open. Probably more than we need to be, to be quite frank. But when we realized we weren't going to be able to, the hardest thing that I had to deal with, and go back to what I said before about my priorities, right? My priority, taking care of myself, is so that I can take care of the others, right? That's why I take care of me. Because if I don't take care of me, I can't take care of them, right? But I knew when we got married that the only thing my wife ever wanted to be was a stay-at-home mom. That's all she ever wanted to be, is a wife and a mother. That's all she wanted to be. She had a career. She was a nurse. She is a nurse. She still has that title. But that's not what she wanted to be. Her passion was always to be a wife and mom. So when we realized we couldn't have our own, and that was on my side, not hers, then I struggled with the inability to provide for my wife the one thing she really wanted. And that's where my struggle was. And so my identity really quickly became, what kind of a failure am I as a husband? Because I can't provide for my wife. And it took a while to realize, you know what, that's not my job anyway, to provide that. That's God's job. So if he wants me to have it, he'll let us have it. If, however it may be, he can provide it any which way he so chooses. But it took time for me to get past that point of, I'm a failure because I can't provide that. And that was a difficult identity for me to get through. I'm not going to lie.
This isn't the direction I expected the podcast to go, and I'm glad it has, because I know, I'm very open about my decision not to have children. Yeah. I'm very open about getting my tubes tied when I was young. I've been very clear. And I think my decision to be open about it is very similar to your decision to be open about it, which is that I know that there are women out there that made a similar choice to me that suffer with judgment and shame as a result of that choice.
Yep.
And if I can be a voice that tells them that they get to make their own choices, that nobody's opinion matters but theirs, I'm going to be that voice. On the flip side of that for you, there are people out there thinking that they're less than human beings because they can't have children.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I was right there
they
with them.
need to hear the other side of this conversation. So I'm really thankful that you're so open for their sake.
And I appreciate that. But the truth is I was right there with them, right? I struggled. I pulled away. Our marriage suffered from it because I was pulling back because I felt like a failure. And it affected other areas of life that I don't really want to go into. Mm-hmm. But, when we finally realized, when it went from here to here, if I could put it that way, since we're being video.
Head to heart, yeah.
It went from head to heart. And it went from something I knew about to something that I could genuinely digest and make part of who I am. When I finally came to that full understanding that I had zero control over it to begin with, that it was completely in God's hands regardless, and whatever some doctor says is going to happen or isn't going to happen, he's not the ultimate decision maker either.
Yeah.
Right? And they can be wrong just as much as they can be right.
Yeah.
And when I realized that it was never in my control, their control, or anybody else's control, it was in God's control. And whatever he wanted to have happen would happen regardless of whether the doctor said it was possible at all. When that finally went from here to here, then I was able to get past that and become who I needed to be. And then I could start supporting my wife. Then I could start helping her find what she needed to be. Then I could start being the husband that I needed to be. Mm-hmm. And all of those things, we go back, and I know this podcast is business related. And
this podcast is human related.
There you go. But, getting into those things, it made it so that I could then also move on in other areas of my life. Yeah. Whether it was business or, working with other people in different ways. But I had to fix me first.
What is the most unexpected reward that you have been blessed with as a result of adopting? Is there anything that you are surprised by?
I'm just humbled.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a large family. I have siblings that have multiple children, and, I've got, I think my wife and I have 22, 23 nieces and nephews.
Holy
between
cow.
The two sides combined. So we've got a bunch of them running around, right? And so I guess if there was going to be a way of being prepared, I would have been prepared, right? Because 45, I've been around them for a long time. And now all of a sudden we have the youngest one in the group. I'm the second oldest in my family.
Okay.
And all of a sudden we have the youngest granddaughter. And it's by 3 or 4 years. And so I don't know that I was completely surprised by a lot of those things, but I was humbled by the fact that it would happen. Mm. And the opportunity would be given to us. And then I look at my daughter, I'm just absolutely amazed at the things that she's able to do and the part that I have in it. And, I don't know that I would say surprised is the right word, but I'm just loving every minute of it.
I can see it.
What I will say is the ministry side of it that we've developed out of it, primarily my wife. She was interviewed on a podcast similar to this 5 years ago, before we had Kierley. And it was put out on to a number of subscribers, and within 3 hours, there were 5,000 people that had liked it, that had viewed the podcast, as my wife was talking about how to celebrate Mother's Day when it hurts. Mm. Wow. And just addressing different things. And so, that ministry has come out of there. And my wife gets phone calls from ladies all over the country all the time, just asking for her advice on how she got through that side of things. And to me, that's humbling. And that's probably the biggest reward that we look back at it. And I'm to be honest, I'm glad my daughter got me now. Because if she got me at 25, she would not have the same dad. And she would have got the dad before all of the problems.
Yeah.
And then the broken dad, right? She would have got all of that. Instead, she got the fixed dad, the dad who's moving forward the right way. And at least I try to think so.
Yeah.
And making changes and providing for her in a way that I couldn't have otherwise.
It's interesting that you say that, because I remember listening to a podcast where somebody was talking about how frustrated they were because they were treated differently than their siblings. And they're like, I don't understand, because we were raised by the same parent. And the host goes, no, you weren't.
No.
Unless you were born at the exact same time.
Yep.
You were not raised by the exact same parent. You were raised by the same person, but you were not raised by the same parent. And I really had to sit back and analyze that and then let it sink in for a little bit, because I've had this struggle with wishing that I had the mom that my brothers had, and wondering why she couldn't be that to me when she was to them, and realizing that you can't ask a 19-year-old to be the same parent that a 25 or 26-year-old can be.
Yeah.
Or even more than that, you can't ask a 19-year-old that's in a marriage to be the same parent that a widowed 32-year-old or 34-year-old is.
Absolutely.
And realizing that it had nothing to do with me, ever. It was such a liberating thing for me to understand. So it's interesting the way when we look back. I mean, I always just think of Garth Brooks' song Unanswered Prayers, right? Where we look back and say, man, if I had gotten what I thought I wanted when I thought I wanted it, it would have been an entirely different scenario.
Yeah, and it'd be a mess.
Yeah.
It would be a mess. And I've thought about that song many, many times myself. But I am thankful that I'm not who I was. I'm thankful that I've grown. I'm thankful my daughter has who she has now. I would have absolutely loved having her 25 years ago. But I'm thankful I got her now.
It's interesting because you say you're thankful for who you were, which I think, or you're thankful that you're no longer who you were, which I think is important. I think it's also important that people recognize that we have to be thankful for who we were, because that created who we are now, right? And so there's this forgiveness of being willing to say, back then, I may not have known everything that I know now. I may not have been everything that I am now, but I can find things that I was proud of in that person that created who I am now.
Oh, I agree. For me, it was an ultra competitive person that just drove myself to be where I needed to be. I can distinctly remember telling my dad at one point when he told me that I set goals that were too high. And I don't remember where I heard it. I'm certain it didn't come out of my own head. But I can remember telling my dad straight up to his face at one point and saying, Dad, if I shoot for the moon, I might land on it. But if I shoot for the stars and I only get to the moon, I got as far as I could. And I'm okay with that. And then turning around and walking away before he could even answer. And if I shoot for the stars and I only land on the moon, then at least I know that's as far as I could go. Yeah. And, I've been told several times you set yourself up for failure way too much. Yeah. And that, maybe that's true, maybe it's not.
But I also set myself up for success way too much.
Exactly.
And there's an old quote, and I can't remember who said it. I would need to look it up. But it said, I never listen to people tell me that it's impossible because it might prevent me from I might believe them. Yeah. It might prevent me from doing it.
Yeah. What was it? Henry Ford always used to say that whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Yeah. And there are things go back to the baseball thing, right? There were times I looked at it and I thought, man, I'm going to give this a go. And I did everything I could for 17 months while they were trying to put the weight on me. It didn't happen. But I can look back at it and say, you asked me what happened in my mindset on that point, right? I don't see that as a failure. And I never did.
That's awesome.
What I saw that was I went as far as I could go. This is what they wanted and my body wouldn't do it. Okay. Yeah. Fine. I got further than most. I got more attention than most. I got opportunity more than most. But it wasn't what they wanted, and that's okay. I gave it everything I had. I can look back and say I don't have any regrets on it. Yeah. There are other areas in my life I can look back at and say I wish I'd put more into it. I wish I'd done more there. I wish I'd done more over here, or I wish I'd paid attention more over there. And that's not one of them. right? But that drive to be perfect,
Yeah.
that I developed at that point has pushed me. It pushed me into different levels. You know, I'm going from, I mentioned the other company I went from not knowing who the company was and walking in the front door, getting hired at $12 an hour to be an assistant front desk greeter, like assistant manager, if you want to call it that. 3 years later, they handed me a $24 million budget, 400 employees, and 165,000 square feet.
It's a pretty skyrocket career.
In 3 years. 3 years after that, I was traveling for the corporate office. After fixing that other location, all the finances and the different pieces that they asked me to fix. So, you know, but that was a drive for perfection that did that.
Yeah.
Right. And that opened up a lot of doors. And then even now, working at home, working for myself, you end up with the biggest thing I think most people that work for themselves struggle with is discipline.
Yeah.
I'm at home, I can get that done later.
Yep.
The home office syndrome, right?
The distractions,
everything is a distraction. Good night. Just trying to keep going, right? Why do people fail in my industry so often? Because they're able to work when, where, how, and if they want. And the problem is they don't want.
Yeah.
They're like, I want all the results, but the if comes. Like, if I want, it doesn't happen.
Well, and I think that there's this massive misunderstanding of the amount of dedication, discipline, and work it takes to be successful. So people see the result, you know, and all too often we're comparing our now to somebody else's 15 years from now, right? And so we're like, oh, well, this person puts in 6 hours a day, gets 19 sales calls, and makes $1 million a year.
Yeah.
I can do that. Well, that person also worked 75-hour weeks 15 years ago when they were building their pipeline. And oftentimes, you know, my coach says it best, and I steal this from her because it's so relevant, and I feel the same. When people come to me and they look at me, and they say, Amber, I want to know how you built what you have. I want to know how you created this life. I want to do what you're doing. And I say, okay, here's my calendar. And they're like, I don't want to do all that. Then you don't want the life that I've built. I love my hectic life. I love the traveling that I do. I love the fact that sometimes my schedule looks like a puzzle. Mm-hmm. I thrive on it. Maybe sometimes to my own detriment.
Yeah. We
understand that there's a level of work that's required to get where we want to go. And I think it's Mark Manson in The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck says we need to stop asking ourselves what we want and start asking ourselves what we're willing to put in the work to get. Yeah. Because we can want something all day, but if we're not willing to put in the work to get it, then we need to shift our focus to something that we are willing to accomplish.
Yeah, another person that most people that are listening to this may have heard the name of that says something very similar is Dave Ramsey. Mm-hmm. Live like nobody else today so that you can live like nobody else in the future.
In the future.
And it becomes a decision. I think back, and this is just popping in my head. I think about one gentleman that I worked with in an auto industry part-time years and years ago. His name was Phil. And you could ask Phil a question, and he would pull out a notebook with a zillion different people. Mm-hmm. And he'd been in you walk into the dealership, and you never saw Phil out front. He was always back in his office, and it was always calling through this and calling through that and calling through this. And he had built this giant pipeline that nobody else had, but he put the time and the effort into doing it.
Yeah.
And everybody else is sitting out front just waiting for the ups bus, so to speak, to pull up, and a whole bunch of leads to walk out the door.
Yeah.
Walk out the bus door and walk onto the property. And Phil was like, "Oh, I got an appointment on this car, I got an appointment on that car, I got an appointment over here, I got an appointment over there." And it was always this entire list of people that he just knew what they were looking for. And when it finally popped in, he'd make a phone call. Yeah. But he had put that work in to be able to do that, and nobody else had.
100%. So it's often easier to look back at what we've done and who we've become and the identities that we've let go of. I want to ask the more difficult question. What identity do you get to let go of to get to where you want to be 2, 3, or 5 years from now?
Oh boy, that is a more difficult one. I don't know that I know the answer to that one at this point, to be quite
That's fair.
frank. I know that there are, opportunities on my plate in front of me that I'm choosing between at the moment. And it may be that I let go of solar altogether. It may be that I let go of other things. I don't know. But the two I can tell you I won't let go of, husband and father. Those will ultimately shape which direction I end up going. But as far as, current titles, I mean, I'll just be honest with you, I couldn't care less if I lose any of them. I really couldn't. If you'd asked me that 5 years ago, it would have been a totally different answer.
Yep.
But I couldn't care less if I lose any of the other titles right now. I'm not wrapped up in it. I'm not the stereotypical solar guy that is, tied into this is my identity.
Yeah.
Right? It's how I take care of my family. I truly believe that we need to be taking care of what we can.
Yeah.
Right? But I don't buy into the identity politics of it either.
Yeah.
And, do what we can. Be responsible. That well dries up. Okay. We'll open up another one.
So somebody's listening to this podcast. They've heard a fair amount about your journey. We've gotten into some pretty deep topics. You have one opportunity to have them hear something to make sure that they hear something. What is the thing you want the world to know?
Focus on what really matters. I'll go right back to that same thing again. Sit down, take some time, get alone, and really search out what really matters.
I love that.
And if it doesn't matter, be willing to give it up.
That's the hard part, right?
It is. It is the hard part. But you don't know what to be willing to give up if you haven't sat down to figure out what really matters.
Well, and what's so interesting is you don't know what amazing opportunities are going to fill that space when you clear it.
Correct. You don't. You have no idea. If you had asked me 5 years ago, going from a corporate position to sitting in my living room and working in a pair of shorts half the time.
Well, thanks for putting pants on for us today.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I've got nice farmer's tans from sitting outside. I got these nice farmer's tan lines because I spend half my time working, sitting in my backyard around my fire pit, working from my phone or working from a tablet, and that's where I spend the majority of my time, right? But that's an awesome opportunity.
Yep.
5 years ago, when my corporate job furloughed and disappeared, I thought it was the end of the world. That happened March 28th. Timeline that, right? 2 months later, on June 4th, we got a phone call that said, hey, would you be open to an adoption? 30 days later, on July 4th, 30 days later, on July 4th, I was a father. We had 30 days notice. We got a phone call. It didn't come through an adoption agency. It came from a friend of a friend.
Wow.
And next thing you know, I'm a father. And the next thing you know, my priorities are completely shifted. I don't want to go back on the road anymore. Yeah. I'm hoping my job is gone, right? But then it became how to figure out how to take care of my family.
Yeah.
Because that's what mattered, right? So until those things are truly defined as to what the core pieces are that matter, then you don't have any idea ever what to let go of.
Yeah. Very true.
Because you might let go of the wrong one.
Very true. I think that's a good place to wrap up. That's such a powerful, powerful ending. If people want to reach out and continue the conversation with you, if they want to know more about what you do in solar or more about who you are as a person, what's the best way for people to reach you?
My business phone is probably the easiest way to do it, 702-546-9780. Or chris.mitchell@power, that's POWUR.com is my email address. But I'm happy to pick up the conversation with anybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been incredible to have you on, and I've really enjoyed the conversation.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Of course.